And as he also mentioned, first I'm going to talk generally about what employee engagement is, and then talk a little bit about the specific tools and materials that can be used to implement an employee engagement program. And finally, as Craig also mentioned, I'll present some lessons learned. So the information that I'm presenting is really based on IndEco's experience designing and implementing an employee engagement program at the 3 University Health Network hospitals in downtown Toronto. So those are Toronto General, Toronto Western, and Princess Margaret. And as my bio also referred to, that this program was actually a larger energy efficiency and awareness program that was managed by IndEco, and it was called TLC, Care to Conserve. And as Craig also referred to, is that it included, just beyond employee engagement, it also included audits and retrofits, retro-commissioning, energy planning, staff training, and social marketing. But I'm really going to touch on sort of what we used in this particular case study for employee engagement to give you a sense of what we found really works best for hospitals, but also for broader public sector organizations and for the private sector. So I guess a good first place to start is, what is employee engagement? So in the context of TLC and more generally energy management, and employee engagement is a tool or framework that assists companies or institutions such as hospitals in identifying and implementing energy conservation actions. So in employee engagement, not only does staff receive messaging on energy conservation, so not just told what they should be doing, but they also have the opportunity to provide their ideas for improvement in energy efficiency. So employees are asked to submit any energy-saving ideas that they've identified, by completing their day-to-day work or things that they see while at their jobs. They're asked to submit these ideas to the organization. And once they've done that, these ideas are then reviewed and evaluated by a group of their peers, and the most appropriate ideas are then implemented. An important step is also that the results of implementing the measures are then reported back to the staff in a timely fashion to help motivate them. So employees can also be rewarded for their efforts, this so that it allows them to take ownership of their actions, and if they're rewarded for them, it encourages them to submit more ideas going forward. So really the whole process is intended to give them an ownership of the idea and then reward them and encourage them to continue. Employee engagement, as it shows on the slide, is not meant to be sort of it's linear in that it follows certain steps, but it goes back to the beginning again. It's a continuous process that keeps going and keeps building upon itself and its own successes. So tools and materials. I'm going to discuss some of the tools and materials that were developed to promote, track, and implement the employee engagement portion of the TLC program. So based on our experience, these things are what I would consider to be the essential or must-have elements of an employee engagement program. So one of the first things you need is an employee engagement team to evaluate the energy-saving ideas and to help promote the program to other staff. So the team should be a group of staff or peers that are engaged and somewhat knowledgeable about energy efficiency. They don't have to be they don't have to be just from facilities departments, or they don't have to be extremely knowledgeable about energy efficiency. They just have to be engaged and willing to go through the process and look at other people's ideas and give an educated opinion of whether these things should go forward. Obviously, the group can't operate on its own, and they really need to have the leadership of the program coordinator or manager, whoever is ultimately responsible for the employee engagement program, to help to guide them. So The next thing I think you would need is a detailed and transparent process for promoting and tracking the program and for submitting and evaluating the ideas. So it's important to have a transparent process so that participants can be recognized accurately for their contributions, and so that staff can, so that if staff question what happened to their ideas or whether or not it was implemented, that an appropriate and accurate response can be provided. I think the worst thing you can do, and the way that you lose people from participating in this process, is they come to you a couple of months down the road and ask, I submitted that idea to switch out these lights or to install this motion sensor in this washroom, whatever happened to that. And for you not to have a detailed process or not to know what happened to that idea, you're going to lose those people right away, and you're going to lose the momentum that you've gained, and you don't want to do that. So tools such as a tracking database and evaluation matrix are also required to accompany this detailed process. So the tracking database is needed to track all the information about the submission, evaluation, implementation of the idea. This information may include who submitted the idea, when it was submitted, the results of the evaluation by the employee engagement team, the date that the follow-up response was sent to the staff member that submitted the idea, the date that the reward and recognition was provided, those sorts of things. So really, you have a detailed tracking system of when an idea enters the system and what happens to it going through. They say evaluation matrices should also be developed so that the employee engagement team can evaluate the ideas that are submitted. So this is one of the reasons that you don't necessarily need to have energy efficiency experts or HVAC experts on the team. It's useful to have these folks, but if they have a set list of criteria that can help them, then they can provide educated opinions on whether to move forward with the idea or not. So some of the criteria you could look at may include ease of implementation, the potential energy savings that may come about from this, the importance of the measure, how important is it going to be to the organization or company, and the level of innovation. So is it a really unique idea, or is it, people should, you find that you get a lot of light switches and motion sensors. Are there any other ideas that are particularly innovative, are going to have a good PR value, or going to provide education for the staff, that sort of thing? So promotion. So you need to promote the employee engagement program. You have to let staff know that they can submit ideas to you, and that their ideas have that have potential to be implemented. So you have to let them know, one, they can submit ideas, and two, explain how they can go about doing that. So this this graphic here is actually an example of a promotional piece that we use for the TLC program. It was actually a postcard that was distributed to all employees with their paychecks. So this information that you see here was presented on the front, and on the back there was a place for them for staff to write down their energy saving idea, and the postcard was addressed to the program, the employee engagement program manager, and it was it could be dropped off in interdepartmental mail, and it would be returned to her. So this was sort of one of the ways that we used to promote the program. Which seemed to work well. If a few people were scared of the scary doctor saying he wants your energy saving ideas, but beyond that, it was received very well. So I think the final must-have element, and I touched on this a little bit when I was talking just about employee engagement in general, is that you need to have feedback, recognition, and reward. So you really need to have this to encourage further participation, to encourage participation by other staff, and to allow staff to take ownership of their energy saving ideas and energy use and management in general. So really get on board with energy saving as a day-to-day activity, rather than just something that they do sometimes or it's some other person's responsibility within the organization. Some of the examples of the feedback, recognition, and reward that we used as part of TLC was, emailing a staff member who submitted an idea upon receipt of the idea. So and then once a decision was made whether or not to implement. So as I was saying, it's that constant tracking, it's that constant feedback about what's going on. So you receive an idea from them, you send an email right away saying thank you for submitting that idea, we'll look into it, and then once the idea has been evaluated, you let them know what happened. So at this point in time, we can't put solar panels on the roof because of X, or because of your idea we were able to go put a motion sensor here, and hopefully this will save X amount of energy, something like that, so that they're constantly in the loop, and their ideas are seen as important. Some of the other things that we did was submitted ideas, and those that were moved forward were their names were submitted in the hospital newsletter. So they were given not just feedback, but also recognition of, look, these people did this. And another thing we did was that all staff that submitted an idea were entered into a draw for a prize. So by submitting an idea, you had the potential of winning a prize. We also gave prizes, awards for the most innovative ideas, and this was something that was determined by the employee engagement team. So a few things to consider, keep in mind when you're developing an employee engagement program. So these are some of the major lessons learned that we came across when designing and implementing this program. So as I've touched on a little bit, when setting up your employee engagement team, make sure you do this right off the bat when you're developing your process and your programs, so that, because really the team does require quite a bit of commitment from folks to meet and look over the ideas, to do any research if necessary. How much responsibility they have is sort of dependent on how much the coordinator is willing to take over, how much of the research and that sort of thing they want to do, and how much they want to dedicate to the team that's been set up. And I would definitely say the team is a very dynamic and ongoing process, establishing the team and the responsibilities. I think that's why you need to set it up really at the beginning, so that you can get a sense of who's on the team, who's willing to do what, and really how the team will function. I think at first we tried to prescribe what the team would do that we developed for each of the hospitals, and we found even within the different hospitals they were willing to take on different roles and do different things. So you really have to work with them and not be too rigid on what you expect the team to do, and give yourself a good lead time in setting up this team. As I've also mentioned, I don't think all of the folks necessarily have to be people that are have a technical background, but it is helpful to have someone on there that can answer their questions, whether that's the coordinator or an additional staff member for facilities, for example, that could address the technical questions that the rest of them may have. In the hospital, we really try to get folks from a different range of departments. We made sure that we had folks from housekeeping, from facilities, from medical and admin, so that we had a depth of knowledge, and that the hospital felt like everyone's department had representation on the team. We didn't want it to be seen as, only facility staff were going to have their ideas looked at, or only housekeeping. So you wanted sort of to be representative of the hospital as a whole. So as I touched on, we talked about developing a process, but, I just really stress that we really learned that developing a rigorous and transparent process for tracking and evaluating and implementing the energy-saving ideas was very important. You should really give careful consideration to the tools that you use to track and evaluate the ideas, to make sure that they are scoped appropriately, and again that they're flexible. You want to make sure that you capture everything you need without making it too complex and time-consuming, because it can be quite a lot of information that you need to track in order to fully understand what's going on and to make sure that you're giving the feedback that's required. Again, I'd stress long lead times. Make sure that you test the process by running a few sample ideas through it before you implement it fully, and then you can revise the process as necessary once you've tested it. When you're evaluating the ideas, it touched on some examples of the evaluation criteria that you could use, but this is going to differ depending on where this employee engagement program is being implemented. You should really carefully consider what they're going to be. Some of the parameters you could look at include the amount of research that's required. You don't want to submit an idea you don't want to approve an idea that is going to require a $100,000 feasibility study in order to conduct it. Maybe down the road you could enter that into another sort of process, but it's not something that you're going to do right away quickly as a sort of a quick win. You should look at, the degree of practicability of the idea, how practical it is, what I'm trying to say. You should also be considering the energy saving potential, but I would not underestimate the value that might be provided by educational value, for example. So something may not have a huge energy savings, but as I said, if it's good PR, if it's a good educational value, if it's out there in front of people, helping them to educate them to take their own actions or to submit ideas, then don't just disregard it because it doesn't have, a payback of 6 months or can save, 2 megawatts of energy, although that would be a very nice idea. Again, just touching on promotion, you have to let people know that they can submit ideas, so you have to promote the program. I would recommend using a range of different materials to promote the program. This will also allow you to test which materials work best in order to get the response. I would caution you, depending on the size of the organization, not to over-promote your program, because you could end up with a lot more ideas than you could realistically handle. So think about how many ideas you would realistically be able to put through the process in a given year, for example. With UHN, you were looking at 3 hospitals with up to 15,000 staff. So we really wanted to be careful on who we promoted the program to, so that we weren't inundated with ideas. If you have a big organization, it might be helpful to promote the program to specific departments or specific floors or things like that, so that you can handle the amount of ideas that you're going to get. Or if you think that your organization is not engaged at all and it's really going to take a big push in order to get any ideas, then by all means promote. But just you have to have a good sense of your organization and how many ideas that you want to get back. One of the things that was done at UHN was we ended up, really promoting the program to those staff that were really spent a lot of time out and about in different areas in the hospital. So we really promoted the program to the facility staff. That included the trades and electricians and painters and carpenters that were out in the hospital all the time. We also promoted it heavily with security staff, who again, their job is to make sure that they're covering all areas of the hospitals and at off hours. So they were the ones who were at night, could see when closed clinics still had their lights on all the time. So they were a really good source, so we really promoted the program with those guys. And also housekeeping. Again, they tend to be around not during the business hours, and they're also throughout the hospital, so they really had a chance to see different things and sort of off-time usage. So, those are sort of the types of, if you're worried about sort of too many ideas, and those are the folks that you might be able to focus on. So the image I have here is again one of the promotion images that we used based on the Rosie the Riveter thing. Some people found the doctor kind of scary pointing at you, and some people thought the nurse was making rude gestures. But apart from that, as I say, they were very well received. Again, providing feedback. You can't stress how important it is to let people know what's going on. If they feel that they're part of the process and their ideas are really being considered, it's really going to encourage them to submit further ideas, to tell their colleagues and friends about it, and also to do other things within the organization to save energy, to start turning off lights themselves, or to encourage them to join green teams or any other energy or environmental organizations or initiatives that you have within the hospital. And recognition and reward, again, is so important to do. Some of the things that we also tried with UHN was, to provide a certificate for participating in IDEA and for ideas that lead to implementation, for example, providing prizes. We also provided more widespread recognition, such as I mentioned in newsletter, but also a plaque on the wall. One of the things that we did, because we really tried to get facilities staff involved in this, is we sort of tied it to the employee of the month type thing. So put their plaque up on the wall. So having them submit ideas and participate in this process were seen as part of the overall employee of the month sort of program, and fed into that where we put a plaque for their month up on the wall with their pictures so that they could be really recognized for the work that they did. Depending on the size and structure of your organization, you could also set up competitions between departments and floors to who could come up with the most or best ideas. Again, you have to be careful with that, because sometimes you say the most ideas, then you just get a whole bunch of people submitting a whole bunch of useless ideas, and it can just lead to more work. But again, you sort of have to know your own organization in order to do that. And what we found is that free food is always a great reward and a great motivator. So, if you're having competition between departments or floors, then the reward of a pizza party for the winner, we always found was a very strong motivator. And then last but not in no way least is to measure. It's really critical to measure what you've achieved through the employee engagement process. So you can measure what you've done on a project by project basis. So that when you're reporting back to someone that yes, we implemented your idea, and if you can say, for example, that your idea saved X amount of energy, then they're going to see real tangible results, and again, that's only going to encourage them. And to be able to track what your employee engagement program has done as a whole in terms of electricity, gas, water savings is also very important, so that you can report that back to the staff in general to say, okay, look, through employee engagement, by being engaged, by submitting these ideas, we've been able to save X amount of energy, and relate that to GHGs. And one of the things we did in the hospital was, again, relate that to healthcare costs. So by doing this, you were able to increase the number of beds by X. So having the results and reporting it into something tangible and meaningful for the participants is so important to do. I'd also stress that as important as it is to say what the energy savings were, it's important to also try and measure how people's attitudes and behaviors have changed as a result of the program. So one way you can do this is, before you implement any program, is to survey the staff and get a sense of what their feelings are about energy conservation, and submitting energy ideas, participate in this kind of program to give yourself a baseline so that you know sort of what the level of engagement is in the hospital. And then once you've had the program running for, you know, a year, for example, go back um, and survey them again and say and see if there's any change in how engaged people are in terms of energy, and you know, get their feedback on the program. You know, you can find out how the attitudes and behaviors change, but you can also use the opportunity to get feedback on specific materials that you've developed as part of the program or to promote the program, for example. Okay, so just to summarize, you know, I think the success of the employee engagement program comes down to really being flexible and making ongoing modifications to the program. You're not going to get it right, you know, first time, so you need to accept that and change the program to make your needs. I'd also, you know, that I talked in general about what employee engagement is and some of these tools and things that you can help you, but as I suggested, you really need the program to be adapted to the size and structure of your specific organization, and you need whoever's running the program and the employee engagement team that you put together to really know what the organization looks like and how it operates, particularly if you're working with a particularly large organization with different functions and different departments and that sort of thing. The employee engagement team, again, is very important, as they are the ones who are evaluating the ideas and helping you to guide and shape the program. You know, take the time to get the right number of people. You want to have enough people that you're sort of sharing the load with regards to responsibility, and that you're getting a good sort of sample of staff, but you don't want it to be so big that it's going to be unmanageable and that you're never going to get agreement amongst the members. As I mentioned, the promotional materials, so they're key, as without them, people don't know that they can submit ideas and how to do so. Again, but remember to promote wisely. You don't want more ideas than you can handle, because if you have too many ideas that you can handle, then you're not going to provide the feedback to staff, and then, you know, the whole process is going to break down. And finally, you know, as I said, this is not a quick win. This program will take time to design and implement, but will provide the benefit of developing ongoing energy savings along with staff education and engagement. You know, it's certainly not a quick win, but it's really, you should look at it as a long-term strategy to achieving energy savings and to really educating folks within the organization with regards to energy. And really, I see employee engagement as sort of a complementary program. As I stated off the bat with the TLC program at the University of Health Network Hospitals, that this was just one part of a larger energy management program, and I think it works well with other more technical and other behavioral programs. So it you know, I don't think it should be implemented in isolation, that it really is just a sort of one tool within a more comprehensive program. And that is it for my presentation. So I think I'll turn things back over to Craig, who will let us know if we have any questions.
We have actually a lot of questions, Shona, so it means that your presentation is obviously much better than mine normally are, because we have a ton of wonderful questions here. So I'm just going to flip back to be the presenter. I've just got a couple of slides here to finish off, and then we'll get into our questions. So thank you, Shona. That was absolutely great. I found a lot of it very entertaining and informative, and obviously our attendees did too, because we have a wonderful set of questions here. So our hope is that today's presentation by Shona will spearhead some new and successful employment engagement strategies in your facilities, or be able to re-engage some that might have a a strategy or a team in place, but haven't been able to get it off the ground or try to re-engage it. So, so I think that some of the tools and points that Shona made will be very valuable for that. So why don't we go into some of the questions here, and just before we do that, I'm going to do my my last little pitch here that we have one more incentive or one more webinar coming up before the end of the year. It's on December 13th, and we're going to speak to many of the energy conservation and demand management incentives that are available. And because most of our customers and the people that attend these webinars are sort of across Canada, we're focused on taking a look at natural gas and electricity incentives from coast to coast. There's been a couple of big significant changes in Ontario and Saskatchewan, so we've updated that information to the very current. So if you are interested in some of the things that are going on in the incentive part and how to fund a lot of the initiatives that Shona was talking about and that the employees will want to do and make the ROI absolutely easy to bring forth to your management team, then please join us on December 13th at 2 p.m., sort of the normal format, and we'll have a great discussion about that. So let's, without any further ado, let's get into the questions that were posed here, and as I said, we have a number of them. So thank you very much. So I'm going to leave this. So most of these are going to be answered by Shona. So I'm going to read them out here, and Shona's going to have an opportunity to answer them. So number one here, trades who work on preventative maintenance and routine operations are vital to have better awareness to operate systems more efficiently. Do we deal with them differently than other employees? So, or is there a special evaluation and awareness to them to consider energy savings and operations? So do contract people or tradespeople, are they treated differently than full-time employees?
That's a really good question, and as I sort of alluded to when I was talking about, towards the end of my presentation anyway, is that at UHN, one of the things that we did was really focused on the facility staff and trade staff, just because they do have, you know, they're working with the major energy using equipment, so they're the ones that know the most. So we did sort of set up our own sort of mini process for them that had its own team to evaluate their ideas. Just because we found with sort of the broader program, they weren't getting evaluated as quickly as we would like, and they were sort of missing opportunities, particularly when it was like a leaky steam trap, for example. You know, that was something, if it's got entered into the process, it was taking longer than we wanted to. So we actually developed sort of a process within the process and had a separate sort of smaller process for the facility staff, in specifically where their ideas could get evaluated much more quickly and effectively, and we found that was a very useful thing to do. They were also receiving additional training as part of the program that the rest of the hospitals weren't getting as well. So they sort of were, yes, treated as a special case.
Great. And next question is, where do you measure in order to compare departments, as this seems like it would be pretty hard to do?
It is tricky. I guess some of the suggestions I had is when it comes to employee engagement, it could be on the number of ideas. But as I stressed, you want quality rather than quantity. So it could be which ones submit the best or most innovative ideas, for example, and that would have to be determined by the employee engagement team. And I think that's one of the reasons why the team is so important. You want to have a team that's sort of representative of the makeup of your organization, so that if you're having these competitions, for example, that, you know, oh well, the team is made up all of accounting, so therefore accounting's going to win. So you want to make sure there's none of that happening, and that's why you want to have the transparent process, so that you can say, okay, why did you win? Why did this department win over the other? There is perhaps the opportunity to sub-meter different departments or different floors so that you could see exactly what energy was being saved. But sometimes that can be tricky to do. At UHN, we actually stopped doing the competitions just because it did cause, people get very involved in it, and it did cause some issues. So I present this as an idea, and if your organization, does this as part of your work right now, any other sort of, initiatives that you run, energy related or not, then you could certainly do it. But I would caution that there are issues associated with it.
We don't want fights in the hallways over competition.
Well, exactly. You'd be surprised what people will do for pizza.
I've done it myself. So one question here is that this looks very familiar, like the ISO 14000 environmental management system. So a specific question to you, Shona. Do you have experience with with ISO 14000?
I don't specifically. This certainly wasn't developed with an eye to that, but it certainly could help you towards meeting your requirements under that reporting protocol.
I think this goes back, if I can just jump in, I think this goes back to what one of your first comments being that this is part of the solution and it's complementary. It's not the only thing, and so whether it's an ISO 14000 or a ISO 50001 or some other sort of standardized process practice that engagement the employees is an important component of any sort of strategy to implement new and more efficient processes.
Thank you, Craig.
The couple of questions here about managing behavior. So how would you suggest managing behavior change suggestions rather than just technical or physical suggestions?
That's a good question. I think you would sort of look at them the same way. So if someone suggested to have, a program where, staff are required to turn out the lights when leaving, I think you could take a look at those ideas in the same way. Some of the criteria that I mentioned for examining them, are the ease of implementation and the importance. Like, I would stress that you don't just want to be looking at technical solutions, and you should have a way of evaluating the non-technical solutions as well. And I think sort of this ease of implementation, importance, level of innovation are applicable both to technical and to non-technical solutions. And I think you should certainly encourage both.
So we have a couple more questions here, and they're fairly specific. So I'm just going to run through a few questions because I think you probably answer them collectively, and then they're, as I said, they're a little more tactical. So questions about how about programs about increasing recycling or reusing furniture, waste management. How often do your teams meet in general? How many ideas can you implement, say out of 10 or as a percentage? And do you support in these programs something like an energy mascot or an energy legend to help educate people on and create the awareness within that program?
Okay, so I will try and address some of those, well, all of those, but if I miss anything, let me know. So maybe sort of working backwards on the energy mascot part of it. So up front I showed the TLC, Care to Conserve logo and tagline. So everything that we did under the program had the branding TLC, Care to Conserve. And we really try to have a comprehensive program. So the TLC program had multiple components, included energy planning, retro-commissioning, audits and retrofits, included training of facility staff. But as far as as far as the staff were concerned, it was all a one program, and they couldn't see the distinct parts of it. So one of the other big parts of the program was social marketing, which community-based social marketing, which is sort of, it's similar to employee engagement in that, employee engagement is sort of a two-way street, is that you educate people about saving energy, but you also want their ideas back. Community-based social marketing is sort of providing education on what they can do, but there's not sort of they can take the actions, but there's not the opportunity to provide the ideas directly back to you, and not the process to do the tracking and all of that stuff. So the employee engagement and the social marketing very much went hand in hand. So at the same time we're promoting them to submit their ideas, we're also encouraging them to take actions. And one of the things, we try to do, one of the big reasons that folks don't implement energy saving activities is because there's barriers, or at least perceived barriers, to doing so. So they think they're not allowed to turn off their computers at night because they're doing backups, IT is doing backups, or they're not allowed to turn off the lights because they have to leave them on for the cleaners. Often these things aren't true. So if you can hear these ideas and these barriers, and then the social marketing can help to educate people, to let them know, to overcome, that you don't have to do these things. So, it very much works hand in hand. So I hope that addressed that part. There was a question about sort of waste and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's just expanding beyond energy.
Yeah, I would, if there's the opportunity to do that, I would certainly take that opportunity. I think it doesn't make any sense to have multiple programs and multiple processes. If you can have energy and waste and any environmental initiatives rolled into one program, I think, and you could use the same process, then why do it twice when you can do it once? It makes a lot of sense to do that. Was there anything other one? Sorry.
Just the last one, I think, is sort of being on how often do you meet, and how many ideas do you think out of 10 can you implement?
Well, how often we meet, we actually try to get staff to meet monthly at first, and then the employee engagement team to meet monthly, but we found that was too much for them, so it really quarterly is what we found. So, making folks aware that they could be quite a long lead time between when they submit their idea and when they might hear a response is important to do, just because it's difficult to pull staff together. It depends on the organization. If you have an organization that you feel you can encourage people to meet more frequently, I would say do it, but with the hospital we just didn't find it was possible to do that. In terms of the number of ideas, again, a lot depended on the ideas. If it was something as simple as a motion sensor, or the fact that a light switch, they couldn't use it because it had been put behind a filing cabinet, those things could be done very quickly. The bigger the idea, obviously it took more, but I would say you could probably, in a quarter, we were probably getting through about 10 to 15 ideas that you could realistically look at, evaluate, and make a decision on. Obviously, some got moved forward to further research, but we would let the person know that who'd submitted the idea. So yeah, 10 to 15 a quarter, I would say, was about what we were looking at for the whole hospital. For facilities in general, we did, their team met more frequently, monthly, and we're able to get through, maybe about 5 to 10 ideas a month.
Well, that's great. That is all the questions we have, and as I said, this was flush of full questions and really, really great questions. You can tell that we had a very engaged audience. So I want to first off thank Shona for sharing her experience and expertise in energy management programs and on the employee side. Certainly, if this is something that's on your radar, to reach out to Shona, and her information is on the slide right now. She would certainly be a person to be able to answer those questions for you and help any of you take an employee engagement strategy to execution, which is which is great and very important. So I'm encouraging that. And then secondly, thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. We had a great attendance today, and I hope you found it valuable as much as I did. And we look forward to seeing you on the 13th to talk about some energy incentives and how to pay for this stuff. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you in December. Bye-bye.